All right, let's talk about the two different types of books that we have in the library, nonfiction and fiction. Sometimes it's a little confusing to tell which is which, so let's look and see if we can't figure that out. A lot of kids think that if a book has photographs in it, that makes it a nonfiction book, just like this one. And in this case, this is a nonfiction book. The best way to figure it out, if it's a library book, is to turn it to its side and look on its spine label. And right there in the upstairs position, you're going to see some numbers. Those are the Dewey Decimal numbers, and it tells us where we're going to put all of the books about the White House in one spot so that they're easy to find. Now, this book is a nonfiction book. It has lots of information about the White House, and it has lots of different text features. This book is also about the White House, and it's got some great information in it too. When we look at its spine label, we see that it's got the same Dewey number, 975. That's where all of our American symbol books are kept, and that's what y'all are talking about in your classrooms this week. And as you can see, there are lots of great pictures and great information. We just have to look and see what the author's purpose is for writing this book. And then in this case, the author's purpose was to give us some first facts about the White House. Both of those books are nonfiction books. They both have pictures as their illustrations, but you don't necessarily have to have pictures or photographs as your illustration. This is also a nonfiction book. Let's check that spine. Yep, 975. But this time the illustrator used drawings. And it doesn't mean that there's not just as much information in this book. Actually, there's probably more because it's a little bit higher. But it still makes it a nonfiction book because the author's purpose was to give us information, to help us use the features that are in this nonfiction book to find out information about the White House, where the president lives. It's a really good book, too. If you haven't read that one, that's a great one. But we don't always have books that are nonfiction books that tell us information. For instance, I don't even have to tell you that this is a fiction book, because good old Clifford, he is so big that it's impossible for him to be real. But this book gives us so much good information about about Washington and the special places that are in Washington. But it's based on Clifford. So therefore, even though it does have some facts in it, it doesn't mean that it's not a fiction book. If it's telling a story, that's what the author's purpose was to entertain us. Then that makes it a fiction story. Let's read this one. Do you have a dog? I do, and his name is Clifford. I'm Emily Elizabeth. Clifford has a lot of friends. One of his friends is Riley, a very good dog. Not long ago, Riley did a very brave thing. He snatched a little kid out of the path of a car. Riley's picture was in the paper, and he was on the television. Somebody in Washington, D.C. saw the news about Riley. Okay, so we've heard that Riley is Clifford's friend, and we heard a story about Riley. I haven't heard any facts yet. Definitely a fiction book, I think. Riley was invited to the White House to receive a medal for his bravery. Clifford was very happy for his friend. Riley got to drive to Washington in a big car. Clifford wanted to see him get the medal, so he tagged along. Still a story, huh? When we reached Washington, Riley crossed a river on a bridge. Clifford was afraid he would break the bridge. Ooh, that's a big part of the story, isn't it? How big Clifford is. Clifford found another way. Look, Washington, D.C. is surrounded by rivers, and Clifford decides he's just going to swim that river. It was a hot, sunny day, but some people thought it had started to rain. The people in Washington, D.C. aren't used to having a big dog around. Before we went to see Riley get his medal, Clifford and I did some sightseeing. Now, the illustrator, Norman Briggs, is going to start giving us some really good information about the different buildings that are in Washington, D.C., monuments, statues. But remember, it's still got Clifford in it. It's still a fiction book, even though some of the places he goes are real. For instance, this very first one is the Lincoln Memorial. But I don't think that really happened, do you? No, but it makes a great story. Look at him. Clifford's favorite statue was Abraham Lincoln. He also liked the statue of Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson seemed to like Clifford too. Clifford was very excited to see the statue of Franklin Roosevelt's dog, Fala. Fala must have done some very great things to get his own statue. Fala was the dog of Franklin Roosevelt, and he was his dog, and they used him to make the nation feel better because they were going through a very rough time at that time, and the nation loved watching Fala play. Oh dear, this is happening nowadays, isn't it? Clifford and I saw a demonstration going on. The grass was filled with people carrying signs. Some were for something, and some were against. The people were angry, and Clifford found this very upsetting. And then he had an idea. He gave them a place to get out of the heat. Everyone enjoyed the shade and got along a lot better. I really wanted to go to the top of the Washington Monument, but the line was very long, and I didn't have enough time. The Washington Monument is the tallest building in Washington, D.C. No other building can be taller than it. Okay, we are about to see a big part of our story that is definitely fiction, because check out what Clifford does. Oh my goodness. Clifford climbs up the Washington Monument. There's no way that's real. Definitely part of our fiction story. People were surprised to see a girl and a big red dog way up there. The view was breathtaking, but we couldn't stay long. It was time for Riley to get his medal. We rushed to the White House, and we passed the National Aquarium. The National Aquarium has all types of marine animals and fish in it. It's a beautiful place. We raced by the Treasury Building, and there they are at the White House. So now we can look at that picture, and we can look at this picture, and we can see that Norman Briggs did a pretty good job of drawing the White House, didn't he? We got to the White House just in time. Riley and the First Lady were standing on the lawn. Clifford was so happy to see Riley, he jumped over the fence. Okay, so the guys that are in those black suits are the Secret Service. It is their job to protect the family and make sure that they're safe. So when they see this giant red dog coming over the fence, of course they tried to tackle Clifford, but they couldn't do it. Clifford thought he might be doing something wrong, so he sat down. That's always a great idea. If you think you're doing something wrong, stop. I explained to the men about Clifford and Riley being pals. The First Lady, who's the president's wife, told them to let Clifford stay. Oh my goodness, look at those poor guys. And she gave Clifford a big hug. And that made our trip to Washington just perfect. Good boy, Clifford. Now, this is definitely a fiction story because no dog is that big. But it's a great story. And what Norman Bridwell did is he put in facts and buildings that were really in Washington, D.C. So if you want to find out more information about some of our national symbols, I would suggest these guys. Because we have the White House, we have the Statue of Liberty. There's all different types of books that are just about the symbols of freedom. Excuse me. And if you want to know where they are, I made a very special display over by the 900s, and you are welcome to check out any of those books. And if you're at home listening to this, put them on hold, and I will bring them to you on Tuesday when you come to curbside service. All right, everybody, that's the difference between nonfiction, which gives us facts and information, and fiction books that are there just to entertain us for the love of stories. Everybody have a great day. Happy reading.